Hi, everyone. So the reason why we are here is AI is emerging technology, and we want to understand the AppSec piece, how AI is emerging, and how agentic AI is shaping up. So in this panel, we have all the leaders, and we'll be discussing more about the emerging risks and some of the best practices, so some of the important aspect, from their experience. So let's, probably, Madhav, can you please share your experience on some of the important business use cases where we can have a measurable ROI, and let's exclude the software development efficiencies because we'll be talking about it a lot at a later point in time.
Yeah, thanks, Sujay. See, largely I think being coming from a fintech background, spent now 3 decades in the fintech. The fintech use cases are largely available there for agentic AI. We look at customer support, and that is one area, the help desk. The second one would be the sales enablement, where you could do a lot of automatically, or your CRMs can now drive a lot of messages. People can come on board and do onboarding themselves, do more of do your own journeys moving there. And you look at risk and compliance. A lot of these areas where today, is the KYC updated or not in the bank is very important today. So these are where, a very hand-picked solutions that we have already built for a couple of banks in India. We work with approximately about 30 odd plus banks in India, where we have a mix of NBFCs and banks, but then largely large banks that we work with, the top 5, in which at least the 3 of them we work together. We work with them on decision and analytics. Basically today, more on decision analytics is we have even automated a process where today a loan which used to take about 3 months or 2 months on a working capital for a business gets done in about 10 hours. That's the turnaround time. And for a home loan, which used to take at least a 15-day period, today it gets done in 4 hours. So wow. That's the agentic solution that we have built over, where it's completely taking the whole model into, building the whole model, understanding the business risk rules, putting up the policies of a bank, and it's all customizable. It's not that it's, very specific. It's, though RBI has a generic rules for everyone, but then every bank has its own policies. So even in building that on a model and doing it is what we have solved the, there's a big case in the fintech. I think this is very much similar in other industries. But then I have no idea because I have not built any of those. But then yes, in the fintech industry, the BFSI and the insurance, yes, we have built a lot of solutions there. And also recently we also built in the security for securities, like Kotak Security and Angel One, Motilal use our analysis for the banking, because today they need to know. The SEBI regulates them to say what are the frauds in the bank statements that they can find. So that's something that we have built again there, an agentic solution for that.
Well, sounds good. Thank you for sharing your experience. And Shiva, can you please share your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I think, I want to holistically have a look at this whole agentic space, right? And I'm sure, it is kind of creating a greater impact in almost all industries. And then when we talk about the ROI, the way you can start looking at it is, today, if you look at any businesses all over the world, right? I don't know if you had a chance to look at the P&L statement of each and every businesses, but in that statement, if you look, 20 to 30% of the cost is about, running the business, or, the operational cost which is involved, right? This is where, various tech systems or your business processes and all of these things comes into picture, right? Approximately 30% of the cost for all over the business. Now, what is this 30% is, this is where, traditionally, if you look at any business, there is something called a system of record, right? Basically, what are you doing in that business? Be it taking an order, processing an order, shipping an order, whatever, right? Everything, what happens is, there is this natural way of communication. Now, from that natural way of communication, you convert it into a system of record, which the systems can understand. And then the entire industry is built around it, right? In order for this seamless movement of, data, processing, analysis, forecasting, and all those things, right? Today, that's what, is taking 30% of the cost. Now with Agentic AI, given the power where, we can do businesses in natural language, there is definitely a need for us to reinvent this system of record. We are squarely targeting that 30% of, the operating cost in each and every businesses. You can take any verticals for that matter, right? Then within this, then you start digging deeper into, your engineering efficiency or your sales efficiency, your DevSecOps, and then, your marketing, your HR, hiring, it kind of targets each and every department. The good and the bad news is, obviously the bad news, we still don't know the impact of it. This 30% will also have much larger impact on people, right? And, our daily lives and whatnot. But the good news there is, the existing folks who definitely adopt it, they can actually ride the wave and, be part of that transformation, which really makes the organization much more effective, right? So in terms of market, I think the key is going to be, if you start looking at the evolving companies or, the overall market share, the operating margin of the business is definitely going to improve because, it's going to squarely tackle this 30% of the operating cost.
Well, operating cost and profit loss margin is something which is, everyone will be tracking from the CXO's front. Jay, what do you think? How does it impact, business with the measurable ROI?
Yeah, thanks. So TeamLease Services is a group of companies. So we are a staffing company and an HR tech company. We have, as part of the group of companies, we have general staffing. We have around 3.5 lakh associates deployed all over India. Out of that, 3 lakh are general staffing, around 45,000 apprentices, and around 7,000 plus IT and technology associates are deployed. Now, we also hire almost around 30,000 new employees, associates within every month, which means that I have to generate 30,000 offer letters, and there will be at least 1 lakh plus or 80,000 plus candidates will be screened by our recruiters. We have like 300 and 400 recruiters are there. One of the use case there is that I have worked on and I'm working on is how do I actually expedite through Agentic AI this checking of interest from these candidates, whether validating the suitability from them, and through an agent also do a pre-screening, and also in multilingual, Indian languages included, check whether they are suitable for the job that is currently open. So this whole thing used to be fully manual, and collect documents from them and instantly validate the documents that are necessary, that it's the same person that belongs to. This entire model we are automating with the Agentic AI. And second thing is also that we also have 1,000 plus corporates that we service, and we process 3.5 lakh payroll processing for these corporates as a staffing organization. We receive towards the end of the month, mostly towards the end of the last week of the month, the inputs for emails about more than 50,000, and every mail is important because they belong inputs for salary processing. Understanding the intent of particular that email, understanding and analyzing the content of that, and validating whether the content is adequate enough to start working on the payroll processing, and communicating back to the customers, sending reminders, and processing and giving in front of the agent to finally approve, we have all done these things for you, now take it forward. This is another use case, Agentic AI use case. This is actually going to impact huge in terms of a productivity, speed at which we are going to influence. The project is not complete, but that is our use case. Third use case that is very important for our organization is also, as I mentioned, 3.5 lakh associates are there. Associate care, right? So there is a phone number, you cannot attend all the queries, right? There is an email that comes, we cannot attend all the queries. So an Agentic AI which will understand what these associates have queries. They may have questions about provident fund, they may have questions about their insurance, right? These are, after all, our employees. So we process understanding of that, what is the intent of that person, and process whether it is an information, it is an action, or it's just providing some guidelines to move forward. These are the key use cases that is going to improve our productivity and has worked on some of these use cases already. So that is the ROI that we're looking into when we are investing into Agentic AI.
See,
Thanks.
one of the ROIs, Sujay, I think, not only the cost is something that people look at, it is a huge productivity in terms of getting the data out and dispersing a loan for a bank is a large case. Though they have, let's take a simple example, Federal Bank today has about, close to some 15,000 employees, where they have about 5,000 credit officers. Now they take, about 20,000 applications come some month, and it takes them a minimum for a day, they can only process 2 applications manually. But then this turnaround for 15,000 happens in 10 days. They roll out to say whom are they giving or not giving. And that's the task which is today. And it's not that just making their, cutting costs. No, it is not so. It's a bank, it's more of how productive and how soon they can disperse a loan and get the customer. Because see, if you look at largely, let me give you one moment to talk here. You look at the top 5 banks. It's not that, the same population is taking a loan, but then it's just a movement of from bank A to bank B. It's just loans are getting transferred. It's just a book buying across the banks. And that is where is a turnaround time required for a customer there. Customer wants, next minute, I want a loan to, scale my business. But then if it does not operate on that basis, the customer has gone to some other guy. So this is where the ROI comes from the banks.
Thanks for sharing the business perspective. Of course, customers will not wait, and that is where Agentic AI and all the AI systems will help in. So now moving from the business perspective to the developer persona and the operations. So yes, AI is trending, emerging, but how it is taking shape in terms of code generation until the deployment. So Jay, do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure. So we just talked about the business implementation of Agentic AI solutions. At the same time, we are all developers and IT information security partners. It is important to monitor what is the productivity improvement for the developer itself, right? So of course, if you asked me a couple of years back whether the developer AI tools were efficient enough, I would have probably said no, not yet. But just in the last 6 months or 1 year, so much of improvement has happened in terms of the tools that are available and the pace at which they are evolving and maturing. This is very, very super critical for us. So I have implemented, in fact, with several teams, I have implemented different tools to get the best outcome, right? Amazon Q I have implemented, the Copilot as well I have implemented, where we are definitely seeing, of course, I hear people talking about 30-40% of productivity improvement. On the ground, we have established at least 20% productivity improvement in code generation. Of course, it's very important when we are using these tools. The context of our business, as I mentioned, this performance, scalability, organizational compliance becomes very important along with the adherence to security. So a mixture of senior developers or development leads or architects with the guidance of them, with the developers, we are able to bring a significant productivity improvement. Because, for example, I mentioned that we have 3.5 lakh active associates are there, but my database is not working just for active associates. The gross number of employees, including the inactive associates, is millions. So if you're designing, the Copilot is actually suggesting a database design or suggesting a code the way it is written. You have to make sure you provide the context well enough that the design is adequate to your performance, scalability, longevity, support for your growth of your business. These things are very important, and review after that is also very important to modify whatever has been suggested. It has been really effective in improving productivity up to 20%. And this is where we can make a huge difference for developer productivity.
Sure. Shiva, how do you pursue this.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Jay told, right? I mean, if I holistically look, people who have adopted, agentic AI in their day-to-day life, I'll just leave with one use case, right? Now, earlier, there was definitely a lot more consideration with respect to writing code and getting the syntax right, compiling, and a whole bunch of things. There was definitely a cost associated with this. Now, with all the code generation perspectives from a developer viewpoint, what has happened is the cost to generate code has almost become negligible now. You can just write hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, right? So that cost has definitely drastically come down. Now it's all about how do you take this phenomena to your advantage, and that's what I have observed with few developers out there in multiple organizations, right? Now as a developer, your day-to-day job might be you might check out code, get some Jira bug reports, right? Then your workflow starts. Okay, I need an environment. Okay, I need to download the latest software, make some more changes, fix the bug, deploy, right? And I have seen now people have a lot of these one-liners, which earlier one-liner was just a wrapper around 4 or 5 commands. But now these one-liners seems to be a wrapper around multiple workflows, which connects multiple systems. Your GitHub, your Spinnaker, or your QE environments and your production environments, right? So what they're able to now do is develop customized workflow, which is really empowering them, right? So this is one of the use cases, and not so. I mean, I also noticed, as managers, when engineers spend out these weekly reports, I think depending on organizations, now I was literally surprised, and a few of them have automated it also to that extent. They produce really good reports. Here is the so many Jiras I updated, here is so many PRs I reviewed, and here are how many Slack messages I responded, right? Because now, collecting data from multiple systems and assembling them and writing code to automate, it has become so easy with all this agentic solution. If you get the right prompt, you get your right, what you need, right? So it's kind of fascinating, the kind of things which is happening. And for sure, one thing which is happening across the companies is every developer, they're definitely getting to the core and optimizing their day-to-day life around it, and being smarter about how they do things.
Thank you. Gaurav?
Yeah, so I think just building on to what was said, I think there are 3 pieces I just want to talk about. One is purely the culture aspect. I think what we are seeing is how we are building the AI first mindset. So I'll give you the Freshworks story. In Freshworks, kind of like every company is transforming to an AI first mindset. So Freddy AI, like we are into ITSM and customer support business. And if you look at Freddy AI, if you look up on the web, you'll see Freddy AI is the agentic solution to kind of help the customer deflect, tickets and, free up agents, and kind of get that ROI. Now, same culture or the same culture of AI first mindset is now flowing down to engineers, right? So if you look at now within Freshworks, we are kind of experimenting a lot with the entire SDLC, or what you call DevSecOps lifecycle today, on coding, build, code reviews, and deployment and operate phases. So in coding phase, we have reached a place now today that every engineer at least uses one AI-assisted engineering tool, right? And we have seen definitely code review times and productivity gains we have seen. But the challenge with we are at a point where people are using GitHub and now started using agents. The way the agents work is basically you have like autonomous development, and it kind of creates a PR. And then now we are going to a world where there's going to be a multiple team agents who are going to do that job. But there is a problem. What we observed in Freshworks is the code review cycles have become longer, right? So you have a shorter code velocity, like code creation velocity, but the code review velocity has become much bigger. That's one of the problems which is at hand, which we are trying to solve. And for that also we have experimented with a couple of GitHub code review tools. There are a couple of open source tools, but the key is, because the world is evolving so fast, we have to use the tools which can give the right context. You have to give the right context of your repositories, your projects, to have reduce those cycles. So today we have that massive problem. On the build side, as people talked about here, right? So people are experimenting. So the engineers are so excited about this. So we had a developer, like we wanted to measure the build metrics right? What is the build failures, number of builds we are doing. And the engineer just, used Cairo from AWS and created a fantastic UI and all these build metrics. And then experimented, also built an agent to kind of resolve build errors autonomously, right? So you kind of detect the build errors, they do the RCA, and then they also do a PR for what caused the build failure. So I think there's a lot of excitement in the community around agentic in the developer community. Then coming to the operate phase, now we are working on something in the AI ops space. It's kind of what you call that, project is kind of called a Blade Runner. It goes and automatically detects alerts, figures out the RCA, hands off to another agent, the agent 2, which actually does the resolution. So there are multi-agent environments talking to each other. Now, all this is good, but the one thing everybody talked about here is how do you measure success, right? And that is one thing which is our primary focus, is how do you look at the DORA metrics, the key deployment frequency, your lead time to delivery. Unless you measure, you will not really, see the end-to-end cycle time reduction. So today we are measuring up to how we are merging code, how fast developers are developing, how the review times are. But from a deployment frequency and shipping it to production and to customer with AI is what really matters. So that's the third part, and the most important part. How do you measure end-to-end cycle time, not just pieces of it, right? Your coding time can look superb, 30% reduction. But then if your review time is larger, you're not still shipping to customers or not shipping to the end of the cycle. I think those are the few areas kind of we are looking at from an end-to-end perspective. And that's so there are problems to be solved. That's the meta point as we adopt these tools.
Yeah, with the clear picture that, all the technology stack and the entire industry is moving towards, the new AI era. So with this, many companies are now initiating in terms of vibe coding and, encouraging many team members to, or maybe everyone, to see that they can use the latest LLMs and be more productive, more efficient. So Sulabh, what do you think that the new security risks that are emerging because of the AI-generated code?
Yeah, so I'll touch base on the point that you brought up. Definitely it's a double-edged sword, right, where developers are using AI to write the code, but we do not know the code written by the AI is secure enough or not. Sometimes there are basic hygiene issues in the code itself. Think like this, a junior developer is writing an authentication workflow, and that workflow is missing the basic input validation checks, maybe some hard-coded secrets, maybe some weak encryptions being used there. So, and there is over-trust issue as well. We also say it like automation bias. Sometimes we over-trust the code written by the AI. Hey, by default, this is going to be secure. There is no need to implement additional security over it. But sometimes that over-trust and that automation bias creates an issue for the organization. The other thing, what I believe here is sometimes the code written by AI also fails the traditional security scanning tools. Let's say if the code written by AI is sophisticated, it will not be by default scanned by DAS scanners, SAS scanners sometimes. So that is another issue. At the same time, developers are also using AI, the adversaries are also using the AI to create the sophisticated attacks as well. We have also seen some sophisticated phishing attacks. We have also seen sometimes some simulated attacks after understanding the code logic, working of the website application, and building that attack at scale. So that is another issue that I see as a result of AI.
Thanks. Piyush?
Thank you. Just building up on what Sulabh said. There is one more key problem which we are facing in S&P Global, because we are usually interacting with the financial institutes. There are lots of regulation in the Europe, whether it's a GDPR, whether it's a DORA. The problem, from a legal point of view, the problem is this, that when you are generating the code from the AI is not a legal entity. So if that particular bug has been passed on, now obviously most of us are using the inbuilt models, which is basically generated by some of the top names. And we are using the vendors like GitHub Copilot and all these things to generate these codes. Now in these scenarios, when some bugs has been generated by these AIs, and I'm not talking about a simple bugs which can be easily detected by these tools, it's okay because it's a responsibility. We have a pipeline where all the security scanning and all these things happening. But sometime, as Sulabh said, that when you have authenticated code, and let's say that that code is basically a backdoor, and that particular thing has been passed all checked and shipped to the financial institute, and it get done whatever the bad things it need to be done on their side, then it's a huge problem. Then from a legal point of view, who is liable? Whether the organization who has created that particular software or the vendor which has provided that particular services, or the model which has been created by that particular top shot companies. And these things are very hard to detect because the thing is that these are so much embedded because it's basically a neural net. It's not a traditional programming where you have a logic. You can go through with the code and understand that how the things can be done. We can use the traceability to understand that, okay, from where this particular tool is generating this particular logic, on what basis, what are the training data which on the basis of that it is creating. But still, it is very hard to detect that how this particular logic, because every time it uses a different path. So from my perspective, apart from the risk which Sulabh mentioned, this is one of the key issue, adopting the AI in a large scale. Human in loop is very important because ultimately some legal entity have to own that yes, this particular code has been reviewed by this particular person or this particular organization, and then only this particular code can be shipped. Another issue which Gaurav mentioned, AI, the vibe coding and all these things are actually creating, it is actually industrializing the way we code. We are generating lots of codes. We can generate lots of codes in a very less time. Now, our information security structure, or basically the DevOps structure, it needs to be upscaled. And to upscale this, we have no other option but to embed the AI. Now, it's a catch-22 situation that to verify the code generated by the AI, we have to rely on the AI because we have to upscale. Again, if you have to ship that thing to the customer in a less time, and for that we are depending on the vibe coding, then our other steps should not be a bottleneck. And and when we are using the AI in that particular thing, again we are creating the same problem which we just discussed. It's a legal issue. We cannot rely totally on AI. So yes, what we are seeing is a promising future with the help of this vibe coding and all these things. But I still see lots of challenges, lots of maturity issues, lots of legal issues which need to be addressed before it can disturb the industry, the level which internet has done.
Right, it's a catch-22 situation according to Piyush. So Jason, what do you think?
Well, just as everybody was saying, we need to, I'll just basically put context in perspective. Now, why AI in development? Speed, essentially. Okay, speed to ship. Now, we have come to a situation wherein we are shipping code at scale. We are shipping vulnerabilities also at scale, you know. So, now, picking on and adding more to what the others have said about this. See, when I'm having an agent write code, okay, I'm also, in addition to this one, let's say insecure input handling, weak crypto defaults, and other things that obviously creep in, hard-coded secrets, for example. Now, one developer, let's say a set of developers might do this in a conventional environment. When you have agentic systems in the environment, it does this at scale. That's a problem. Now, the second part is, okay, when you're writing, we talk about vibe coding, etc. That's essentially coding on the fly, coding as you feel like, etc. Now, when you're writing all this code, the more the AI learns about how you code, it builds itself on patterns, etc. It also writes more and more sophisticated code, which takes more time to scan at the static level, at the dynamic level. Now, this becomes a problem because ultimately when you are looking at speed, it's a, it's a contrarian approach. So you will ultimately see in certain places that you will be asked to decrease the depth of fuzzing, etc., which will then become a problem. This is one issue which I see which is not being addressed. And in many cases, what I've seen is the actual time taken by code review tools, dynamic application security tools is actually increasing. So that this is a significant problem. The second part is the supply chain aspect. What I've seen with AI writing code is it picks public repositories by default. Now there are two problems with this. One, of course, it comes with all the issues of open source code. The usual stuff, who maintains it, security fixes, so on and so forth. That issue comes up. Also, the issue of vulnerabilities coming in, creeping in through that angle comes up. The third part is on the legality aspects of it. So, whether that can be written in a commercial environment, etc. Now, this actually, even if your code review tools catch it, it is going to be post-development, which means precious time is lost. And again, that comes back, okay, are you really solving for speed? That's the last part. The third part is, if I know that, okay, there is a certain pattern or trend analysis of vulnerabilities that is repeated by a pod or let's say a service or somebody, I can go to this thing and say that, hey, what you're doing is wrong, etc. I can point out attribution is easier. With AI, whom do you attribute? The weights, whom do you attribute exactly? That's a black box. And with regulations increasingly coming out in favor of explainable AI, this is going to become a problem. The last part, I'll flip the tables a little bit onto the attacker's perspective. If I'm an attacker, this is a great age to be living in, because previously, whenever I used to look at penetration testing and other things, I was rather proud of my skills, etc. Now my pet peeve is everybody can do it. And that lowers the bar quite a lot. And in case of AI agents, etc., we deploy agents inside our infrastructure to write these codes. Now, everybody by default is considering that box that we put it inside our own environment, that's safe to go. But what if the agent itself is tampered with? You can say that your outbound firewalls and all will catch it, but there are 10 other ways to bypass that. Now, this is another issue that I'm seeing, and these things, once it explodes all over the internet, and this becomes a vulnerability that at mass. So these are some of the things that I see with, agentic AIs and the security risks associated with it. These are open-ended. As of now, nobody's really solved it at scale.
Thank you. And Sulabh, so we have seen that code is moving at scale, vulnerabilities are moving at scale, and the amount of code that is getting added, the volume of it, and the speed of it. How is AppSec teams shaping themselves and adapting to this emerging behavior?
Yeah, good question. So definitely it's a challenging situation, especially now when everyone is using AI nowadays to ship faster. There is a lot of pressure on everyone to move fast, ship fast, right? And at the same time, the similar pressure is on AppSec teams as well to ensure the security is also meeting the pace of this shipment of this development, right? And the key three pillars, what I see here is integration, automation, and enablement. So when I say integration, so we should have the security integrated within the developer workflow. Whenever developers are writing their code, there should be security, AI-powered security tools as well integrated within the pipeline. As soon as the developer is writing something, it is giving the real-time feedback instead of the later security issues discovered in the pipeline. That actually cost more, and that is an expensive process, not only in case of money, but also in case of efforts. Other than that, the automation, so definitely we can automate some of the test cases as well, again with use of AI. And when I talk about the enablement, so we also need to think about security is not a blocker for the developers, we are enablers for the developers, where we are providing some security guidance to these developers, right? And we can also implement some kind of security champions program where we can scale the security using the security champions. And other than that, we can also use some AI tools to generate some secure patterns, secure libraries that can be further used by the developers when they want to use during the development. Other than that, it can also be used to drive some LLM-based trainings that may generate some gamified challenges for the developers where they can enjoy, hey, how we can secure these vulnerable libraries, vulnerable code, and fix it at scale. So this is where I think we should do that.
Thank you. And let's hear from the fintech side. So Madhav, can you give your perspective on the issues and the golden era of, the hackers and stuff?
See, as talked about largely, everybody said, right, AI does a lot of work in terms of fast coding, right? It speeds your development effort by 30% or 40%, whatever it is. But do you trust that? Now, that is the biggest risk factor for when you are asking an AI to do. Then again, you need to test it out. You have to build again and use an AI to test the code. So what you're generating is guaranteed to you, you don't know, right? So I think even the fintech today, there's a lot of hassle in terms of telling them, okay, I'm going to use AI to build some of these models. The first question is my data going to be out of India? They have that blockade there. So it's not easy for them to say, okay, let's start tomorrow morning, you can implement, though the Google GCP talks about today that, we are compliant to RBI guidelines, but then banks don't go and use it. There's still a lot of, kind of, I would say, hesitance, and they don't believe in that. I would use simple example. There's a bank which has got a large AI team, but then still don't want to implement those models. The reason being that they don't know, is it the right thing that they're going to have the data out, right? Even in a simple example, when we went with a customer engagement, we said, let's do this. They had hundreds of questions. Will the AI bot answer a right answer to the customer? So I think there are a lot of challenges which we ourselves need to introspect. Is it really going to take it off? But then the trust factor is what I see is a large today. A missed thing that I would say it's still an inhibition for somebody to move in and say, yeah, let's go ahead. But then it's a long way for I see the AI to make a change. Yeah, it's 30% changes in certain areas, but then complete change will take a large time.
Sure. Prathap, can you give your perspective?
Yeah, I think, so what they say is AI is probably this is the second year or the third year fully going blown, right? When internet first came into picture, there were discussions a similar way. Will internet really change the way we shop or whatever, all the other things that we do? So we know how internet has changed. But so like you say, AI is probably the second year, the third year now. Honestly, even though we put in the security tools which have AI capability in it, having those review the business logic, business rules, having that context is challenging. Not just for the security tools itself, even when the vibe coding tools are in there, putting in there, the code is written automated through AI. We are seeing in runtime those issues are there. Like this was a mention about this is a great time to be an pen tester or an attacker, right? So they are finding these issues in runtime, and we are not able to catch it in the shift left automated tools in it. So as the security tools evolve, having those business context helps, but the vibe coding is moving faster than we can catch up.
Thank you. Yes, it's a clear risk of the security, especially for the organizations. But let's understand from Piyush in terms of the need and need for the organization in terms of having any tools, any special layer that we need to have, any review layers that we need to have, especially for the AI-generated code, so that they can avoid these risks.
Absolutely, because we have to understand that this is the same thing which is happen with the cloud, and when there is a very large scale adoption of the open source software. We need the governance, whether it's a cloud or open source tools or maybe the AI. Until we do not have a proper governance from a security perspective, it is very difficult to manage these things. Consider AI as a junior developer, the same example which has been taken earlier. This developer does not know the coding practices. You have to tell them, with every prompt you have to tell them what coding practices he have to follow. This developer does not know, because each LLM model is when generated, there is a cutoff date. From before that, the data is used. And second thing is that these coding LLM models, they are based on the open source codes which is available in the GitHub or any other repositories. So they don't have your company's proprietary business knowledge. They don't have the company's coding standards. They don't know these all nitty-gritties which you have to feed in as a prompt. But there is a line which we have to draw. The developers cannot put the sensitive data into, while creating this prompt, they cannot put it. So there are certain areas, if you have some intellectual property, you have some very special algorithm, you don't want to give those algorithms to these particular LLM codes or vibe coding partners. So we have to draw a guidelines, guardrails, by which need to be followed by each developers. And we need a thorough policy from which AI model can be used to what prompt can be done or given. Another thing which we require, and which I touched upon in my previous answer as well, that we need the traceability. We need to understand. We have to monitor these AI models continuously, and we have to keep track on the traceability, that how this AI model is generating these codes. Unless, if we will not monitor these things, we will not be able to identify the abnormalities which is coming out of that LLM model. And that's where the thorough guideline, thorough monitoring, and human in loop is very important. You cannot directly ship the code which is coming out from these things. So these three are the key pillars which we have to follow. Training is again one of the key pillars, that each developer should understand what to provide, what type of prompt they have to put in, and what data they have to provide, what data they have not provide. AI cannot replace a developer. It's a fact, because I don't think we are at that particular, we don't have that maturity. Human in loop is always required, because ultimately, as I said, AI is not a legal entity. So a human is always required to thoroughly review this code, and thorough means very thoroughly. Right now, you usually trust your peers. Most of the time, the review is not that much deep, but when you are taking the code from an untrusted tool, which is a generative AI, you have to be extra cautious.
Sure. Companies always expect production-grade code coming out, irrespective of developer or AI. So, can you give your perspective in terms of how companies can safeguard with what tools and any security layer? Jay.
Thank you very much. I think in my personal capacity, I also coach mid-tier IT professionals to become accelerate in their leadership journey. So why I'm mentioning this now? So one element which is missing, usually get missed, is a coaching. See, one is an organizational guidelines, framework, what you can do, what you cannot do, that you can always set it up. But there needs to be an element of coaching, right? What is the right way to use it? In what areas you need to use it? Now, I have also heard some organizations, rightly, that they are blocking access to the, some of the, AI tools, right? It has to be the tools that they have reviewed and approved, because there are quite a few things are there. In fact, I have lost count, and, I had to restrict my research and implementations to few tools that were already stable in the market. Otherwise, there were more innovative tools are there, right? Especially in niche areas that you have a specific problem, the tools are there. Now, we need to set up a guideline, of course, that these are reviewed and approved tools you have to use. This is the use case, create a matrix. For these use cases, these kind of situations, these are the tools that are useful. And invest in them, right? Don't use the free versions just because they are free, because nothing comes for free, right? Either the information is taken out from you, or it is free as an individual capacity usage, but when it comes to enterprise applications, you have to actually purchase the licenses anyway, right? So build that framework of use cases and create a matrix, what are the tools that are useful. And as I mentioned, coaching, right? You need to have work with the L&D teams, right? Have people who identify, who will coach individuals, group sessions to educate everyone what is the right combinations, right? So this is the fundamental framework the organization can put. Of course, the security framework comes up over and above. The security framework evaluate the tools for adherence to security guidelines, and make sure any tool that you've implemented, you also have security validation AI products are also there, right? So implement that, co-implement with them, make sure the code generated is secure as well. So if you build this framework along with education, along with the coaching, you will be able to make a big difference in the organization.
Thank you. So Shiv, let's understand from your perspective. We have discussed a lot about code generation from AI and how AI is reviewing its own code which is generated. How do you think Agentic AI can help and support AppSec to determine the threat analysis or the secure design and code review practices and automation testing?
I think this is an interesting question, right? Now, with the capability of AI, we have the ability to write, thousands and thousands of lines of code at ease, at a click of a button. Now, using the same technology, we can also now do the AppSec review of the code, which is being generated, right? But in all this, as Sulabh highlighted, the key context is we don't have the business context for all of these things, right? Be it when you're writing code, we tend to give as much business context as possible, or be it when the AppSec is being reviewed, they don't have enough of business context to make the decisions, right? But on the positive note, if you look at it, right, generally every organization where they struggle is, in the knowledge sharing and learning process, right? You might have hundreds of security incidents or hundreds of production incidents. Now, how do you take all the learnings from those incidents and then disseminate the knowledge across the company? Or especially more importantly, how do you provide that knowledge to the dev team or all the teams which needed them, right? Today with AI, it has definitely leveled that playing field, right? There is definitely expertise. These agents can be taught and they understand at least the common use cases or, the previous use cases which has gone through, and it can definitely apply those intelligence to the code generated for review, right? But then, it can only do that, right? Now, unseen use cases or which are very specific to your business domain, I think this is where, at least as it stands today, the Agentic AI-based AppSec review definitely needs a lot more improvements in this space. But when it comes to the general intelligence or general data available, I think it's going to do definitely an awesome job at what it is today, right? I think moving forward, we don't need to search the known needle in a haystack. Now, it's all a question about searching unknown needle in that haystack. I think that's where I would sum it up.
Thank you. And sorry, Sulabh. Sure. I'll just complete Sulabh and we'll take the questions. So Sulabh, what do you think? Coming from the security review background and heading that space, what are the challenges and how do you think Agentic AI can help here?
Sure. So when we talk about Agentic AI, so I take it as a smart agents. Those are working on behalf of us. And they are not only working passively, in fact, they may take decisions on our behalf. They can understand the code written by the SDEs. They can understand the architecture created by them. They can read the documentation. They can do everything on our behalf and do, and make further decisions. And what I feel is there is definitely a lot of opportunities to scale better using these Agentic AIs in terms of, let's talk about threat modeling. So now you do not need to do 3-hour-long whiteboarding. Now you can just offload it to your Agentic AI and they can, come up with industry standard threat models like Stride, Dread, Pasta or whatever, and they can come up with a very nice view of threat models with all of the business context. And on top of that, a human can touch up it, refine it, make more refinements, maybe a minutes of job now that was hour long earlier. So that is where what I see, especially in terms of threat modeling. But in terms of the code reviews or the security testing, what I feel these agentic AIs can also identify the patterns being used, especially for the input validations, maybe some IDORs, maybe some tokens being used for CSRF or any secret scanning or any hard-coded credentials. So these are some low-level things that can be easily offloaded to the agentic AIs, and at the same time, these agentic AIs can be used to simulate some of the attacks, doing some fuzzing based on the logic of the code, and generate some sophisticated purple teaming activities as well to ensure our code and application is secure enough. However, having said that, we are not there yet. We cannot offload entirely on agentic AI at this point of time, and it needs a human touch always. It is just an extra lever that we can pull to scale our application security reviews better when we have a lot of application attack surface for our organization, and where we can, in the end, a human is actually validating what is identified from these agentic AIs and ensuring nothing is missed and they are just doing their due diligence, and the baselining is only done by the agentic AIs.
Thank you, Sulabh. So, yeah, we have heard a lot about agentic AI, how it helps, and what are the security risks, and how AppSec is shaping up. Any questions from anyone for the panelists here, so that we can take.
Thank you. It was a really good insight to give to see from both from the dev as well as AppSec part of the AI. My question is again from the offensive part of the security itself. So we have seen a lot of applications or a lot of tools companies coming to the vibe coding part. Just like we had also seeing a lot of supply chain issues that is coming from. We had one issue which was coming a week ago. So how do you see the encountering of these supply chain attacks, or it could be, or we're also going forward and started implementing agents on our systems to interact with other critical systems in our organization. So how do you trust, not only from the coding part, also from the integration of these two other tools? So how do you see that?
So agentic AIs are, as I said, that there is always a it's a good to have an agentic AI because it can help you automate lots of stuff, lots of integration part. But again, there is a legal and legal issues are always there. But what best these agentic AIs can do, especially what we talk about the patching and all these things. Agentic AIs on these LLM models are very good in analyzing the data. When they can analyze and they can do it in very fast pace. So when you have a zero-day attack, or when you have vulnerabilities get highlighted, this particular system can draw the data from multiple sources, scanners, our different asset depositories and SBOMs and all these things, and come up with a very precise plan that how we can tackle that particular situation. So these are the few good things which we can get from the AI. But if we are expecting that these AI can automatically patch the systems, that's something which we will not recommend, because after all, it's a machine, and machines are also prone to make mistakes. We were discussing before this particular panel discussion that there was an incident happened where AI was unintentionally, or you can say by mistake, able to delete all the data in the production because the instruction which is took is differently. So obviously, we require a human in loop, especially when we are talking about dealing with the production systems like patching and all these things. But yes, the AI can be used for drawing the plan that, okay, what particular patches need to be prioritized in the current scenario, what type of attacks or whatever traffics are coming to us. On the base of that, what are the key areas which need to be patch first. So if we are talking about the plan prioritization, then yes, this agentic AIs and the LLM models can help you a lot in coming up with a precise plan so that you can defend your organization.
See, when you're talking of integrations, agentic AI, go back one step further and look at modularization of your own environment. The reason I'm saying this is whenever you look at integrations, you can never be 100% answering a question of trust. So how do you mitigate for that? 99% of security is at the end of the day mitigation. So modularize your code, modularize your databases, modularize the integrations as much as possible. That significantly, in case of an incident, that will significantly decrease your blast radius. Second, have guardrails in place. So somebody was referencing the production database issue. This particular issue was when an AI agent, which was essentially substituted for the entire, let's say, production deployment, actually ended up sending a production database offline and then try to cover it up with garbage data. That's scary. That's like human-like behavior and all. But essentially, the key takeaway from this are two main things. One is AI mature enough to be trusted with that kind of things at an org level? I would say not yet there. The second, guardrails in certain cases which have business criticality have to be absolute. The last part is one of the OWASP vulnerabilities for AI, interestingly, is not about a technical vulnerability. It's over-dependence on AI. So have a backup plan in place. Essentially, that's why everybody keeps saying about the human in the loop. It's very important. Thank you.
So I'll just add to it. So one of the things we have done at Freshworks is we have a trust layer. So trust has many aspects like content safety, prompt safety. There is PII anonymization, right? So there is an engine which kind of a layer between your products and your, the LLMs which are externally vendor hosted. So a lot of these functions get taken care there. So even if you use an open source integration, the requests which go kind of passes through the rails, or that layer, and there are rules built in, so it kind of catches. So this kind of abstracts. Think of it as in your service architecture. That's a layer which is your trust layer, your privacy protection layer, your audit layer, observability layer, and then kind of monitors the incoming. Just like think of it like a firewall. So these are some of the examples of in this new world how we have we have to rethink. That the whole layer from a functional standpoint, which kind of adds those guardrails. So that's one of the ways we have done it at Freshworks.
See, largely just to add, one more thing. It's not that everything can be done by an AI, right? So you need to think through, dice through what can be done. Think through a use case which is possible. Not that every code can be written through an AI. That is one. And then largely, even if you write something, you also need to build a test scenario to that also through an AI only. Because you manually, nobody will be able to understand that and say, okay, let me go and do this. It does not work. That is one. But as we talked about, I think everybody here says that it's a human, bottom line for all of us is, whatever we do with, vulnerability in our security, using anything in the AI, it needs human touch. And human is accountable for that. It's not AI. Please understand that, today for us, though we say we are using large models for doing a lot of financial analysis, but then still we do a 10% QC is done on that before it goes to the production. The reason is that we need to have that kind of human touch to see is it right or not.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, my name is Vinod. I just wanted to understand post using of AI as the vulnerability comes down or the trend which you're seeing and what are the false positives trend in the code base?
I'll start off on that. See, the average vulnerabilities, known, whenever we talk of known, unknown knowns, those kind of things and all, most of the known vulnerabilities have better vulnerability management. Okay. Now, and at least in places wherein there is true AI, both at the developer end, wherein it is used as a co-pilot for security coding, integrated with the IDEs and all. The second part, okay, if the code at the SaaS DAS level again employs these tools, it helps in both reducing the number of vulnerabilities which are actually being at the developer stage itself before he commits, before the pull request happens. That's very important from a developer ROI standpoint. The second part is to answer the number of false positives, etc. There is reduction in the number of false positives because it's better. I mean, it's a simple thing. It's better able to correlate. So there is reduction there. However, we are now seeing a disturbing trend. Now, since traditional vulnerabilities cannot be exploited, the number of zero-day vulnerabilities and 0 days in the supply chain exploits, that part has increased. So I am seeing a move from wherein, industries will now have to move from traditional threat intelligence to those marquee zero-day intelligence products. So that is one shift which will be an unintended consequence of this.
Thank you. I think we are on time, so thank you very much for sharing your opinion and thoughts based on your experience. So really we have seen the AI trend and the emerging security risks, the postures and the balance that each and every company will need to abide because, and as mentioned, the layer that we need to have, it should not be just on the code. It has to be SAST, SCA, DAST, and wherever possible, even after deployment, with better debugging, monitoring aspects. So we should be able to have a production grade code, and of course with AI agents that is possible, but with caution. Thank you.